This is the Console Killer. Welcome to my tutorial of Tryrush Deppy for the Sega Saturn. I believe this was only released in Japan. It's actually a really good fucking game, so it's another game we didn't get in the US or in Europe. You know, a lot of the great games were only released in Japan for this system, unfortunately. But yeah, for this game, it took me around an hour and a half to beat, so it's not that hard, but it does have frustrating parts. The reason it's not really that hard, in my opinion, is because you can start at any stage or stage section that you got to. You can't start at the checkpoints if you lose all your continues, but you'll be sent back out to the main menu, and then you can just go back to your save file and load up on that exact stage. So if you got the 4-2 and you lost all your continues, you can go back and start from 4-2 again. So it's pretty lenient in that regard. You won't, like I said, you won't be able to start from the mid-stage checkpoint if you have to be sent back out to the title screen from losing your continues. But aside from that, you pretty much have infinite continues. Just set it to auto-save. Otherwise, I think you have to manually save after each level, which I'm not trying to get any secrets or anything, so I didn't care about that. But yeah, it can still be frustrating. One of the main aspects of the game is that your health is constantly draining. So you have to collect gas cans to try to keep your health up so you don't run out of gas. And I'll explain, you know, I'll go into more detail about that during the levels. I was trying to input my name as Ass, but, you know, then I gave up on that task. It was a little bit too much work. But yeah, this is a great game. I definitely recommend playing this. It didn't take me too long to beat, as I said, but it would have been tough if you had to do, you know, the entire level from the start. Like if you had to start at 4-1 and beat the entire level, you know, and the series of levels without wasting all your continues, then it would have been a lot more difficult because some of the levels can be tricky. But you'll get it eventually since it lets you start on the section that you got to. You pretty much just walk, and you have a jump button, and you have a dash button. There's actually a lot of the buttons on the controller will do the dash. You can, I believe, just tap it once to do a short dash, but a lot of times, you know, you want to hold it down and get the most powerful dash. At least when you're fighting the bosses and hitting the bosses, you want to try to get the hardest hits on the bosses, get like a full meter, and then hit them. For some of these parts, though, I guess you can just tap dash to move around. Just keep in mind that dashing wastes your fuel very quickly. So if you abuse it, you'll run out of gas and just die in the middle of the level. So keep an eye on that empty meter, that empty and full fuel gauge over there on the left. Here I was just learning the controls because I had just started the game. I didn't look up anything, so... I mean, I didn't look up anything initially when I started the game. I think I checked some videos later, but... most of it is not too difficult. This is a bonus stage. Basically, collecting these pink stars allows you to get more continues because you use them as a form of currency to buy continues, pretty much, which is the game automatically buys continues for you. I think they cost like 100 stars or something like that, but I'm not sure if the price changes. But it doesn't really matter. If you run out of continues, you just go back to the title screen and reload your file again. It'll start you on that section again. You just won't start at the checkpoint, as I mentioned, but aside from that, you get to start on the level you got to, so... the continues are pretty much worthless. It's a game that should have just had infinite continues since there's really no additional punishment for, you know, for losing your continues. It's just a waste of time to go back out to the title menu, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. And a big part of the game is going to be knowing where some of the gas cans are, just so you have enough fuel to get through the levels. And a lot of times, like I said, you don't want to be spamming the dash. Sometimes you just want to walk through the levels because, you know, using that dash heavily, you'll waste your fuel and you'll die a lot faster. So Early on, it's very easy to get the gas cans. A lot of them are in plain sight. That CP right there, that little thing I just touched, that post, that's the checkpoint. So make sure you touch those when you see them. So that way, if you lose your lives, and I think even your continues, you can start at that post. But of course, if you're sent back out to the screen, you won't start. The title screen, you won't start at that checkpoint. But it's worth getting. I think there was a 1-up that I just bypassed right above me, but it's not really that important to get them. You can also set the lives in the options menu, which I did in the beginning to I think I set it to 5 lives or something. It's just more of a time-saving thing because you'll just have to go out to the menu more often if you set the lives less, but you won't really... It's not going to send you back any farther, really, except for, the little mid-level checkpoints that you get sometimes. This is very easy. All you do is just, watch where those danger icons are. And just stay away from that. That's where the ball is going to come down and strike. And whenever you see these little red guys, you want to jump on them because they'll give you gas. So they're always good to kill. But later on, there will be ones that can electrify themselves. So, when that happens, you'll have to just, watch them and make sure they're not electrified when you jump on them. They can be a pain in the ass later on, but it's, there's going to be times when that's going to be your main source of fuel during a boss fight to keep you alive. So, you will want to kill them. This game is odd in the way that, with the way you get fuel, it's interesting mechanic because you can stay alive longer by collecting fuel. So sometimes you can really take a shitload of hits and just keep going. Almost like Sonic with the rings, but it's different in the sense that there's a constant supply of fuel even during the boss fights. There's gas that you can get to stay alive. So you can kind of keep yourself alive with those gas cans, even if you're playing the boss pretty badly. Which is it's an interesting thing. You don't really see that in any other games that I can think of. For this, it's very simple. You just get on this platform when it's available, and you just have to hit him. It tells you where the weak point is. It's that gem on his head. So you want to get a full charge and slam it, and you can get 2 good hits in easily before it goes back. Those guys on the bottom, you can stomp on them and stop them from breaking those steel girders, which is probably good to do because then you'll have less areas that you can fall through on the map, which it's a little dangerous when there's a bunch of holes in the ground. But if they're too low and you stomp on them, you'll just go through with them and die, so it's a little dangerous. That's why I ended up leaving them alone. I wasn't sure exactly how that worked. You're not going to see any kind of real skillful mastery in this playthrough because this was my whatever success. Whenever I beat a level or a boss, that was it. I don't go back and redo shit usually. So I just edited out all the deaths for this playthrough. But these are the successful attempts, and whatever worked was what got left in. But yeah, very easy fight. Yeah, you'll see some of the boss fights are going to drag out, especially the final boss fight. Because it's a pain in the ass. I mean, it's so hard to avoid getting hit. For that fight, you just want to focus pretty much on grabbing the fuel cans and not so much on hitting the boss. Now, sometimes it's better to ignore when the weak point is open on the boss and just get the gas cans. But, I'll explain that more. You'll see when I get there. But that's more of an endurance fight. Even the speed run I saw of this game, or the final boss fight I saw in the speed run, the guy got hit a lot. So I think it's pretty hard to avoid damage in some of these parts. There's a lot of shit that eventually comes up on the screen. And you'll see at that checkpoint there was a little hiccup. That's because I edited that. I died on that checkpoint, so I edit those out. So that's why it shows up as a continuous, I didn't beat a lot of the levels in one life. And yeah, you want to get those batteries whenever you can, because that will give you invincibility, and you can run really fast and just blaze through the level. They make a huge difference. They make a lot of levels that are otherwise hard, they make them easy. So anytime you can find one of those, you know, definitely use it. You can swim a little bit when you're on the very top of the water. If you mash jump, you'll kind of skim on. You'll bounce off. You'll do little bounces along the top of the water, and you can get across. It's good to keep that in mind. If you go too low in the water, though, you'll just drown. So it is dangerous. I think I may have not even gotten that checkpoint over there. I'm not sure. There was a checkpoint that I skipped over, but I think if you don't touch it, you don't get it. So I probably got lucky that I still was able to beat the level without using it. But yeah, I got the battery. The battery, like I said, makes a huge difference. Because you don't even waste gas, I don't think, when you have the battery. So just blaze through everything. So yeah, if you can remember where that is, then you'll probably blaze through the level. I believe this boss fight was the one that gave me the most trouble. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, but I'm not sure if this is it. Oh, no, maybe not. No, this is a different boss. I think this boss is really easy. Yeah, this is a very easy boss. I don't know if I even died on this. You just have to get behind him and slam into his back end, but you can keep picking up gas and staying alive, so as I was saying about the last boss, focus a lot of times on picking up the fuel cans, and don't worry about getting in hits on the boss always. You know, don't get greedy with that. Try to get the fuel, because as long as you keep collecting fuel, you'll never die. So, you know, that should be the main focus, unless you're really good at hitting them and you don't need it. But then you wouldn't be watching a tutorial most likely on the game. But yeah, a lot of this is sloppy. Because, like I said, it was probably my first time playing the boss, and I beat it on the first time, I think. So, there's no refinement here. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You just got to hit him in the back. The bubbles can get in the way, so you know those can be annoying. Bouncing on the guys too, I think, also gives you some fuel. So, I think some of them drop gas. Of course, whenever you see that danger sign, it means that missiles are going to come down right where that sign is. Very easy to avoid that. But it's good to try to keep your meter fully charged at all times, or most of the time when you're behind the boss at least, so you can be ready to get in a hit. I always try to keep it charged up for boss fights. That time I was able to hit him from across the screen, but you know, a lot of times it's hard to do that, but just try to get in hits whenever you can. Yeah, and that's it. So yeah, very easy fight. Most of the boss fights aren't too tough, but there's 3 fights that are pretty tough, pretty tricky, but not that bad. The final boss is probably the main pain in the ass because he has a lot of forms. But as long as you focus on getting the gas cans, it didn't take me too long to beat when I focused more on getting the gas. Of course, I skipped the story like usual because you know I'm never interested in the story, and I mean, unless I get requests from people who want to see me leave the story in on games. But like I said, I don't get a lot of views at this point, so unless I get some requests, then I'll start leaving the stories in. But I'm more about the gameplay. I like to just, you know, I like just mass murdering a lot of games. I go through a lot of games, and I just like to kill them in bulk. Astal, ASTAL, was another great Saturn game that I just beat maybe a day ago or something like that, day or two ago. Definitely a classic game. That actually got released in the U.S. But yeah, that was a great game. Very fun game. I did a tutorial on that too, so check it out if you want to see that. I also beat Clockwork Knight 2 recently, which is pretty cool. Not as good as Astal, but it's quite good. You know, it has some clunky and floaty control, but... and the 3D graphics can make it kind of confusing when you're landing on things or trying to hit things, but... overall, it was a fun game to beat. I didn't do a tutorial on that one. Maybe I'll add, do a tutorial on it, but... let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. I can always do that. Yeah, not much to explain in that level. And if you want more continues, grab the stars when you can, the little pink stars, but, I wouldn't go out of your way. Because like I said, you get infinite continues, ultimately. You just go back. Yeah, get that battery for sure. Remember where that is and get that. Because then you can just blaze through the rest of the level. Otherwise, these levels can be tough if you don't get certain items. Some levels are really scarce with gas cans. Like, I couldn't find many gas cans at all. So sometimes that was like the saving grace for the level. Is getting that battery. Some of the later levels can be a little tricky with that. But that's pretty much it for that level. And coming up next is the difficult boss that I was talking about. This boss is a pain in the ass. I mean, it doesn't have to be hard, but, if you dodge it well, then you won't end up having to, swim half of the battle. But otherwise, you're going to be falling in the water a lot and constantly mashing jump trying to get back up. And you can't swim back up unless you're basically can't swim back up unless there's a block underneath you that you can jump on. So then you have to wait for the blocks to come. Sometimes they will eventually come. Other times you'll just be struggling for a while and then just drown or run out of gas. But I like to stay in this close vicinity here and get these hits on them. And then I move back a little bit when they start doing their attacks. And I just get the hits in when I can. That was pretty much it. But, it can get messy when you start getting frozen a lot by the water or burned. And then you got to mash the button to get out of it. And then you'll get hit by something else again. It can be really annoying. But I think this attempt ended up going fairly smoothly compared to normal. There'll be some gas cans that come down, so try to grab them when you can, but don't go in the water to get them. It's not worth it. I've done that before and lost. But try to keep a little distance and anticipate what they're going to do. As you can see, I still took a lot of hits. But I try to get only fully charged shots in. I don't really bother with getting the weak shots in. And that's pretty much it. That went fairly well, but it can be a pain in the ass. I died a lot on that. I don't even remember how many times I died. I probably lost multiple continues or something. I remember dying a lot. It took me a little while to beat this guy. He was one of the bosses that gave me the most trouble in the game, actually. And there's a boss that should be harder with a chase sequence involved, but that ended up not taking me too long. Maybe a few minutes, but this one took me a while. But you'll get it eventually. And this is already getting far in the game. The game's not that long. And I'll be adding commentary to the second video after it gets done processing and I finish recording this one. So I should have that up soon. Yeah, for this, you want to go right in that middle section where that battery is. Try to keep an eye on where I went to get that. And make sure you get that. Otherwise, this level is very difficult. There's not a lot of fuel. And the level can be really tough without that. So, yeah, you get the checkpoint here. And, I don't think the rest of the level is too bad after that point. But it's still a little tricky. But the first part can be very hard. The first half can be really hard without that battery. So, I suggest trying to see where it was exactly on my video and trying to get it. It's in the, I believe it's in one of the middle platforms in the early part of this stage. Those bombs, I don't know how to get them off of you, but, you know, by that point it didn't really matter. This level you have a little bit more of a limited view on the screen, but it doesn't really affect anything too much. You know, eventually you'll find a path that works. There's usually a few paths through the levels, I noticed, which is pretty cool that the levels are not super linear. Usually if you fall, there's another way you can go to get out of the level. There's a checkpoint down there, so it's probably good falling down there to get that. I don't think you even need to go down here. But, yeah, it'd be worth it to get that. And I'm, you know, just by fucking around, I eventually find my way out of here. By, you know, mostly luck. But yeah, just don't use your dash much in this level, because then you'll just run out of gas and die. You really don't need it. And whenever you see fuel cans, just get them. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for this video, so stay tuned for part 2, which will show the rest of the game. There's not too much left, so I'll have that up shortly. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the tutorial for Tryrush Deppy. And yeah, things get a little bit more difficult here, but it's not too bad. For this part coming up, you're going to have to run all the way to the right, and then when you get to the boss, you have to run back to the left. So it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. I think it might have took me only like 5 minutes or something. I only failed it a few times. It wasn't too bad. Once you get back to the end, the actual boss fight is extremely easy. So the main difficulty here is running back. You basically just want to watch out for the flames, and once you have an idea of the route, you usually want to stay up on top of the platforms, because otherwise you can't make certain jumps. You know, the platforms will be too high above you and you can't reach them, so try to stay up on the platforms for the most part. But it's just, you know, it's a little bit of memorization, that's all. Once you know where to go, it's, you know, pretty simple. Like I said, it only took me a few minutes, so I didn't even have it memorized, and I beat it. So it doesn't require too much. Yeah, and then at this point, you can mainly stay in this left corner and just wait for him to be open. It's a very easy fight. Once I got to this point, I beat it on my first try, so I think if I would have stayed in the corner and ducked, I probably would have avoided that, but it didn't really matter too much. I mean, that one's not even close to hitting, you know, so it's pretty fucking easy to dodge. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, that's a very easy fight. A little tricky with the having to, you know, run back, but that's about it. And at this point, there's not much left to the game. I believe there's one more full stage and a boss, and then after that, there's just a final boss and no stage. So the final boss is kind of an endurance fight, though, so it's a little tricky. But it really only took me a few tries, so it wasn't too bad. But you'll probably get hit a lot in the final boss fight. But if you focus on getting the fuel, you can stay alive. And that was my main strategy. Yeah, make sure you get that battery, because this stage can be tough without that battery. Because there's I don't see any fuel cans around in this level. I couldn't find any, so it was very hard without that. So, keep that in mind and just get that. And I'm not sure if I passed the stage checkpoint, because I was moving pretty fast. But if you get that battery, it's not bad. Definitely go up here and get that gas can initially. Because like I said, they're very scarce in this level. So that's the main thing, is you just run out of time. I wanted to get that gas can, but that spring made it kind of annoying. There's a checkpoint there that I just passed. And you can pretty much just kind of rush through the rest of the level once you get to that checkpoint. It's not too bad. And I believe this is the very easy boss fight. It's extremely easy. So you shouldn't have much trouble with it. The main thing is just collect fuel as you need it, and you can bounce off his face when the boss is all the way to the left of the screen. You can just bounce off his face for a long period of time, and you don't have to dodge any of the stuff that he shoots out of his back. But you can come back around if you want to get fuel cans, depending on if you need them or not. But you can, you can pull a lot of bullshit here. Just kill those red guys to get more gas. It's a good way to get your fuel up. When it gets close, you can kind of just get sucked through them. It doesn't matter if you take it, take the damage. Like I said, you don't have to play well. You just keep getting the gas. His weak point is when he sends his heart out, which he hasn't done yet. So if you want, you can just hang out back here, like how I'm bouncing on his head. You can just stay back here. I come back out sometimes to get the gas, but that's about it. And then once he moves back to the right, then the heart's going to come out, and you can get in one fully charged hit and maybe a second almost fully charged hit. If you try to go for two fully charged hits, I wasn't able to get two full hits in. But it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's a very easy fight. Just, try to get the gas when you can. You can still miss a lot of the gas cans. You can see how sloppily I played this. This was my first time playing it because I, beat it on the first time. But it was still good enough. Even if you're taking all the damage, just make sure you bounce around on top of those guys and get the gas, that's all. I'm not sure if those second hits were even connecting, with the heart, but, as long as you get one fully charged hit in, it won't take that long to beat him. But yeah, you can pretty much just take the hits and just collect the gas. Looks like he still has a little bit more health left, but I think he's about to die. The last boss is similar to this too. I mean, it's harder, but it's similar to this. With just being a very long fight. It's a much longer fight than this, I think, but you can just stay alive by collecting the gas. So that should be your main focus, and then you probably won't have too much trouble with the last boss. Yeah, and that's it for this boss. And now all that's left is the final boss. It's basically, for the final boss, it's basically 2 fully charged hits to make him change forms. He has a number of forms. But if you hit him with 2 fully charged shots, that usually sends him into the next form. If you can't get a full charge, then you can do partial hits, that aren't as powerful. But I usually try to get fully charged shots in. But some of the forms, it's tricky to even get any hits in, so I'll just, take what I can get. I'm sure there's a much better way to play this boss, but after a few tries, this is what ended up winning. But you can start at this boss infinitely, so you can just keep starting from the beginning of the fight until you beat it. You don't have to go back and replay any stages. The boss fights are usually, their own stages. Now these guys have electric fields that come up around them, so just be careful with that because you can get electrocuted. You just have to hit him in the weak spot that it shows. His mohawk is basically his weak spot, the top of his head. For those gas canisters, just do high jumps and you can reach them and grab those, the ones that are floating at the top. And for the laser, just duck or bounce off of somebody's head and time it right so that you're in the air. The blue guys don't give you fuel, but the red ones do. Just got to watch out for that electricity. I mean, this stage, it's kind of an orgy of hits. It's a lot of bullshit going on. But yeah, that ends the first form. And there's quite a lot of forms. This one's not too difficult either. But your main focus in this fight, if you're just trying to beat it, is to try to collect the fuel whenever you can. And if you miss an opening on the boss, don't worry about it. Just make sure you keep that fuel, because you can easily run out. Some of the hits will damage you a lot, so it's worth focusing on that. And if you do that, you should probably beat the boss. Eventually, even if it takes long, you can draw it out for a really long time if you keep getting the fuel. You can tell when he's open, obviously, because those black balls on his hands are all the way down at the bottom, and his head is exposed. This one's tricky because he sends out these things on the ground, and there's a lot of other shit going on. So usually I end up taking the hits from those things on his hands. I just let him run me over, pretty much. And I just used the invincibility frames to get to his head with a fully charged meter. You know, I just abused the invincibility. That's basically how I ended up beating it. I'm sure there's a better way to play it, but I wasn't able to dodge those things on the ground for some reason. So just try to get to it with your fully charged meter and get a hit. And I missed the hit, but that was the general idea. You do have to make sure you jump high enough when you release the dash button so that you can hit the top of his head. So it's a little bit anal with that. Like that looked like it should have hit, but it didn't. I don't think it connected. But eventually you will get it. You don't really have to worry about anything but just getting the fuel when those red guys come. You know, just kill them and get the gas. Get the ones at the top. I don't even know if I got a single hit in yet. Like I said, it's tricky to get those hits in. So this part takes me a while. But yeah, after taking those hits, you know, just try to get in there and get a hit in. And don't worry about if it's fully charged or not. I mean, it's good just to try to hit him because it's a pain in the ass to hit. See, now here I'm almost on empty. So I'm able to get fuel somehow and stay alive, but I almost died here. I barely survived. My car was starting to slow down because it was about to die. Let's see, now I'm back in the game now, so take those hits and just try to get to them. Yeah, and that's it for that form. That's one of the harder forms. I think that is the hardest form. I think everything else is pretty easy from this point. Try to avoid that fire and ice and just get those hits in. Like I said, only need 2 hits and it's easy. This is a very easy form. You know, continue to focus on getting the fuel, obviously. But yeah, that's it for that form. Very easy. Yeah, and of course, you know, when his head is exposed, just get him a hit. It's the same type of thing. I mean, I was taking a lot of hits here on those red guys when they turned electric, but I mean, as long as you get that stomp through, you know, you get the fuel, so it doesn't really matter. You can play pretty fucking sloppy on some of these boss fights. But yeah, things can get messy. There's a lot of shit everywhere. I think this form's a little bit annoying because he throws you around, so it kind of wastes your gas and your time. But it's not, you know, it's not especially difficult. I would say it's definitely easier than that other form with those rolling things on the ground. I think that's the hardest form. For me, anyway. It's getting a little dense now at this point. I was focusing on getting the fuel since my gas was getting a little bit low. I could have got a hit in, but I don't want to get greedy. Because, of course, if you die, then you have to redo all the forms again. So I was trying to play it safe. And I think next might be the final form. Final form is extremely easy. You don't have as many gas cans available though, so you can't take super long, but for the final form all you have to do is hit his hands and remove those robots off of his hands by hitting the hands with the dash. And as you do that, I believe the red one in the middle will give you a fuel can, so you can get like 2 fuel cans. I think that's all you can get out of it, but it's very easy. Once you remove those robots, all you have to do is hit his head. And yeah, I guess you can hit his head. I think I got a hit on his head there, even with the robots moving around, so you can probably still hit it. You could probably kill him without destroying the robots, but it does make it a lot easier. Yeah, and that's it. That ends the game. So yeah, not too hard. A little bit of a long fight. But yeah, great fucking game on the systems. Too bad it didn't get released in the US or Europe, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, thanks for watching.